That's essentially the vision that we've always had, was how do you create a local thriving economy and help shepherd like other people to feel inspired to try to open up alongside you. Since we've opened, we've had a couple businesses in the downtown open up and tell us directly like, oh, you inspired us to open up here too. Local people, we want to help them. We want to, promote them as much as possible.
We love the San Gabriel Valley. There are some amazing people and businesses here, and we think they deserve the spotlight. Welcome to the SGV Master Key Podcast. We'll have on the people that make the SGV great. We'll find out what makes them tick, their ups and downs, their history, and we're going to have fun doing it. This is the SGV Master Key Podcast. And now your hosts, Scott Warmoth and Russell Mano.
All right, SGVers, welcome back to another episode of the SGV Master Key Podcast. If you're a returning listener, welcome back. If you're new to the show, welcome. We bring you the stories behind the people and businesses of the San Gabriel Valley. So if that's your thing, if you're into that, please like, share, subscribe, and stay tuned for another guest here on the show. Well, before we get started, we always have a little dialogue leading into our guests, but I want to remind you that we've partnered with San Gabriel Valley Now, your source for city news, announcements, events, special savings, and everything SGV. Check them out at Instagram, sgv.now, and read the new SGV Now magazine on their website, sgvnow.com. Well, Scott, before the show, we were talking about development of different areas and cities, and Montebello specifically. You said there's some new developments going on, but also new developments in other cities that have really helped them to grow and blossom.
Well, I think a lot of people, when they think of Montebello, they think of Montebello Town Center. Yeah. And that is kind of the maybe what the city is going beyond now and developing something, deeper and more profound than that. But I know they've got a great new city manager, whom I happen to know. Renee Bobadilla is someone who has come over probably a few years ago from Pico Rivera, but he helped develop Pico Rivera, and now is bringing Montebello to the next stage.
Right. Well, there's certainly some imagery or feeling that comes about when you speak about a city in the San Gabriel Valley, certain areas where people congregate and go to. And today's guest is, I believe, going to bring about that particular place in the city of Montebello. His name is Barney Santos. He's the founder and CEO of Gentefy. Barney, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so we mentioned your connection with the San Gabriel Valley, Montebello, but why don't you share with the listeners what your connection is?
Yeah, so I actually live in the city of Montebello. I have lived there for over 10 years. I own a company with my wife and our partners. My wife mostly is, her and I own a company called Gentefy, which is a investment firm. We invest in people, places, and programs within Latino communities, specifically like Latino creatives, to help unlock and unleash that fire within the community to help build a strong local economy. And one of our first projects that we launched in the city of Montebello was Boulevard Market. And Boulevard Market it's a food hall right in the downtown corridor, right in the heart in downtown Montebello, or what I guess is being, labeled as downtown Montebello. We still have kind of a ways to go. And then within that, we have, our bar, which we own also, which is called Alchemy Craft. It's a beer and wine bar, and also a kitchen incubator, which is pretty unique. It's the first of its kind in Los Angeles County, where people can use a shared kitchen and actually sell directly to the public. It's kind of like, like a shared kitchen commissary with a couple restaurant concepts, and they sell directly to the public, just simulation like of a restaurant. So really great concept. That's kind of what put us on the map in that city. And so that's kind of how we've been, positioning ourselves lately.
You mentioned that you were born and raised in Montebello.
No, I live there now.
Oh, you live there now?
10 years, yeah. I was born in, I was born in Watts in the hospital, King Drew Medical, lived in Maywood, lived in Downey, then downtown Los Angeles, and then Montebello. So I kind of bounced around, all kind of like on the east side of Los Angeles.
Okay. I didn't grow up in Montebello, but I spent a lot of time there, specifically the on Beverly Boulevard. There's a bowling alley there.
Yeah.
And then friends at Shore High School, Montebello High School. And of course, when the mall came about, that was a huge spot. Everybody was going there all the time.
Yeah.
And I remember after the mall, like I sort of never really went back.
Yeah. Yeah, the mall was a huge thing. I mean, I remember as a kid, it was thinking like, oh, we're going to the Montebello Mall. It was like a big deal. But it's, like most things, like it was innovative and new and amazing. And then over time, the mall model just kind of got disrupted by e-commerce. And I think recently the mall was just sold to the owner of Shoe Palace, I think it was, or one of the sneaker companies, who I think they're going to build housing and all kinds of stuff. And so I hope they sort of do something really innovative with the space. It's a large footprint. It covers two different cities. It overlaps with Monterey Park.
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the new model, isn't it? I've seen housing as potential fill-in for mall space now.
Well, you got to think about like urban planning and design, right? You go to like Europe, right? And like these corridors have been designed to have retail with housing. It's a perfect fit if you think about it, right? Like the Americana is a perfect example of that.
Right.
If you blend the two perfectly, it just works. People want to live and work and play in the same place. Yeah.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, in the U.S., you don't see much of that. Obviously, New York, the big urban centers have that, but suburban Los Angeles and Southern California has not really had that.
Well, we've had the luxury of have space, and so but over the last 20 years with with everybody kind of coming to live in the city, it's been overly saturated with a large amount of people. So we're starting to need more density building for capacity, but we don't have it yet. And so you have all these people living sort of 4 or 5 people in a house, not supposed to. And so we need to go up and build higher. Yeah, density.
Well, I haven't been to Market Boulevard, but I've read about it, and I've seen pictures, and it's a wonderful concept. And what I read is that it's 8 shipping containers.
Yeah, so Boulevard Market is a business that's right in the corner of 6th and Whittier. It's indoor outdoor. So we took sort of this old 100-year-old building, repurposed it. So the building's still there. We have 3 concepts inside of it. It's the bar, which is Alchemy Craft, which we own. It's La Crosta wood fire pizza, and then the chicken coop. And then on the outside, we have essentially about 5 shipping containers. So we have a container courtyard, and they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 concepts in there. So we have essentially Café Santo, which is Oaxacan coffee, amazing Oaxacan coffee. Vichos, which is an amazing Salvadorian pupusa eatery. They started in food trucks, and this was their first storefront. Pez Cantina, which people are familiar with, are very highly centralized in downtown Los Angeles. We have, and then the Incubator, which is 2 new concepts, which is Nola Cajun Creole and then Los Taquero Mucho. So great concepts. They've been doing really great exposure and press. Nola was featured on Eater and Los Angeles Times, and so people have been getting really good exposure being in the space. So it's been good.
So this is all your idea?
Yeah, I mean, it's a combination of different people. So we essentially, my wife and I traveled a lot, after college, and then we just kind of started looking at the way Europe modeled building community and how Mexico does it with urban planning and design. And then we've also landed at this development in downtown Las Vegas called Downtown Project. It was made by Tony Hsieh when he moved his entire company to downtown Las Vegas and saw what they did there. And they invested $300 million in their revitalization of downtown, and we thought, oh, what a cool model. I cold emailed Tony, just kind of randomly, and he answered, and he kind of responded, invited us to go up there, put us up in a hotel and showed us how it works. And so we were really inspired by his model of how to invest in community. And what does that do for the impact of a development of a community? And so, I mean, to say it was just our ideas, be lying. It was a combination of influences from different places.
But it had to start somewhere, and you were the one who started thinking it through.
Yeah. Well, my wife and I, for sure, we both did it together.
So when was the genesis? When did you first start thinking seriously?
The first germ of an idea for the company, the main company, Gentefy, came back in 2014, something like that, 13. We heard about this idea called gentification, which was happening in Boyle Heights by a company called Eastside Love, which is a bar in Boyle Heights. And so their whole philosophy was like, well, what happens when people from the community invest back into their community to try to prevent and slow down the gentrification process, right? Because it's like you make it nice, but you do it with intentional, activations and economic responsibility. At least that's what I thought in theory, right? I was like, okay, that sounds really cool. Well, what if we created a company that did that, like intentionally, that's what we were supposed to do. So we created this business called Gentefy, which is like the action verb of that, right? So that's essentially the main crux of the idea where it started. And we kind of fast forward through time. I went to grad school, did a couple things, developed some educational programs. We would develop stuff for other people, and then eventually we said, okay, well, like let's get serious about building an actual company about this. And so it took about 5 or 6 years to build out Boulevard Market. Yeah, so that idea took that long to build. But
well, it's a sophisticated process, and so I was thinking you must have had some education in the process.
Because believe it or not,
is that right?
Yeah, I just went. Most things entrepreneurial people do, they just say like, that sounds like a good opportunity. Like, let's learn, let's pursue it. You just learn by doing. I never went to like real estate like development school or.
What was your grad school study?
So I went to USC and I went to Marshall, got a master's degree in entrepreneurship and innovation. So focused on that specifically. I mean, taught me the models of like impact investing and venture capital and like business acquisitions and, all the stuff that I really wanted to learn that added on to my already education about business that I had. So, just wanted to further accelerate. So that was really kind of the idea. And then I learned development by doing versus, going to school for it.
Well, when you finished school, what did you find yourself doing then?
Immediately after I finished school, so I was working for a company called Unilever, which Unilever is like a Johnson & Johnson's, a big,
right.
Fortune 100 company. And right after I graduated from USC, I got promoted to essentially join this team for the new business models team at Unilever. So essentially, we were tasked to like develop new business models for the company for North America. So we had to develop the entire like innovation framework for how the group worked. Like, and thankfully, I had just graduated and I basically learned the entire framework for innovation, corporate innovation models, and so knew how all these other companies were doing innovation work. So I was able to apply all that, with Anna, my partner on the team, and we were just rocking it, like building it out for the whole company. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
So you were with Unilever, and did you leave Unilever to go into Gentefy?
Yeah, so at that time, Gentefy was already we established the company back in 2016 because we were doing some grants and doing educational programs. And so we were like getting contracts. And so we were just kind of minimally doing contracts, developing programs for people. But while I was at Unilever, I had decided to leave because I got offered a job to run the Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation at Cal State Los Angeles. And so, I'm an educator at heart. Like, I really love the community. I love that aspects of kind of like community work. And so when I got offered the job of like running the center at Cal State Los Angeles, which was my alma mater at undergrad, it was hard for me to pass because I felt like, I could do a lot of good for the community, helping entrepreneurs at that level, launch their businesses and teach people the framework for how to create generational wealth for themselves and for their family. And so it was a big deal for me to kind of go from Unilever, which was this giant corporate conglomerate that was always caring about the next quarter, like just trying to push, more growth for the next quarter, to go into like Cal State LA, which their biggest impact was how do we prime people for generational wealth building? Like, how do we prime people to build themselves and their family? And big shift, and that's kind of where my heart and DNA is at anyway. So it just made sense for me to go that direction. I stayed there for a little bit. After the dean hired me, there was another dean that came in, and he and I just didn't see eye to eye. In fact, he didn't see eye to eye with the university either. They let him go, and then they shut down the entrepreneurship program, stopped funding it. And so it was a perfect time for me to kind of leave because then I went to raise capital for our company. And so within, like 6 to 8 months after that, basically we raised over $2 million to kind of build Boulevard Market. So it's kind of perfect timing for us, honestly.
So you said it was maybe a 5-year process to build it. And so that's when you started building.
Yeah, it was not to build, essentially from idea to execution, right?
Right. Yeah.
I think the actual process was like maybe 2.5, 3 years, probably, from like raising capital to like opening our doors, yeah. Or finishing construction, I have to say.
So you raised capital, but then you had to deal with the city, and that must not have been easy.
Yeah, I mean, easy, yes and no. I mean, the great thing about Montebello is like they understood what we were trying to do, and they were very hungry for it. Like at the time when we pitched this, it was like perfect time, perfect place, because the city of Montebello had new council members who had backgrounds in development, so they understood what we were positioning and what we were kind of like propositioning for the downtown, and they knew how much of an impact, a ripple effect that would cause, and so they were very behind it. The problem with development, a lot, because it takes such a long life cycle, sometimes council members cycle out, even city managers. Montebello specifically was strange because during the course of our development process, I think there was like 3 or 4 different city managers. There was one, Francesca, who, I think she got let go of, and then there were 2 or 3 temporary city managers, and they were kind of like focused on other stuff, stabilizing the budget and whatever, and so they weren't trying to like pay too much of attention to us as much, right? And so and then council members got refreshed also. I mean, there was a point where it was like a year before we actually started construction where I think all 4 council members got voted off or didn't get voted in, I should say. It wasn't like Survivor or anything like that.
Yeah,
it kind of
right.
is,
But there was just the turnover.
Yeah, the turnover happens. And so, we had to, funny thing was like we had to actually just to reintegrate the new council members, we had to have like a groundbreaking, even though we weren't anywhere near starting construction.
Right.
We had a groundbreaking ceremony. And we invited all the councils for photos and all that stuff. And it was at that moment that like everyone got introduced into the project and supported it again. But we had to do that just to get constantly lobby on our behalf, because it was an ongoing process. But city has always been behind us. We just always had to make sure that they stayed behind us, because they easily can get focused on some other things when turnover happens. So.
Right.
How was it getting the community to invest?
The community was always responsive. Before we actually opened Boulevard Market, we spent about, I would say like a year and a half just talking to the community specifically about, what the problem was and what people saw the issues were. After talking to community members, organizations, city leaders, what we found was there was a massive disconnect. And you'll see this in a lot of like Latino communities where you'll have legacy businesses that have been there for over 10 years, 15 years, like your taco spots or like your quinceañera shops and places like that are like extremely important and, to the fabric of the culture of the community, but who are having a tough time evolve to the point where they can stay relevant, right? To meet the demand of like this emerging millennial class of people. So people like from 25 to 40 who are essentially going to university, getting educated, traveling more, watching more Anthony Bourdain, right? And so saying like, I want something more. And so what they're doing is that group is leaving the community to go spend their money in downtown, West LA, right? And so you have this massive exodus of people who are leaving the communities they're from because it doesn't meet the needs that they want. And so, but then you have this other group that's like, well, I can't evolve fast enough. So it's leaving this massive gap in our community. And so I always say, like, it's a running thing I always say, but like, we deserve nice things, right? Our community deserves nice things. And not to say that legacy businesses aren't nice. They're amazing. They're phenomenal. I love them to pieces. But I also know the needs of the millennials aren't necessarily met, right? Being currently met to a certain degree. And so I think that was kind of like the gap that we discovered during that year process before, was knowing what was the real problem and then trying to figure out, okay, well, what are the solutions that this group is looking for? And so they're looking for places that they feel represented, that, they feel connected to, that they want to hang out at. They want to feel like the West Side or downtown is in their backyard, right? They want to feel proud of the place that they can go to, show their friends and family members that this is in my city, they want to hang out at. So that's kind of what we tried to build. And so we looked at models from Europe and Mexico, like I was mentioning, and see how they do it organically, because they're the masters of urban planning and design, in my opinion.
Yeah, it has to be organic, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. How do you make it feel organic? Because it's all not organic, right? Right. It's all intentionally designed, but how do you make it so that it feels like it's authentic and it's organic? That's the tricky part.
Part of it is this difference between gentrification and what you might call gentrification.
Yeah. Well, the nuance between that is that, like, I live in Montebello, right? Like, right. I care a lot about what happens. I care a lot about affordable housing. I care a lot about policy. I care a lot about, like, making sure people in the community have the incentive to want to open up and can make and be easy for them to open up a business in the local community. So they feel like they have to stay, or they should stay. There's an opportunity to stay. Versus gentrification is mostly outsiders coming in who don't care about any of that. They just care about turning the dollar, right? Like they don't care about the community to that degree. They care about is there a demand there? Can I meet it, and can I make money? And then that's it. Whereas mine, it goes a lot more deeper than that. Like, and I'm trying to create business interventions, or help lobby for other types of interventions to help offset some of the gentrification type of energy that could be created through the work that we're doing.
I remember as Old Pasadena was developing, go back 20, 25 or maybe even 30 years. Originally there were the smaller businesses, and then you saw a lot of this outside, Tiffany or, national brands come in and replace the small bagel shop or, the local restaurant that was there. And so Old Pasadena changed over, the period of its lifetime. And, some would say for the better and some would say not for the better. But how do you perceive that as a potential problem?
For sure. I mean, it's problematic, right? If you think about it, like corporate interests only care about the shareholder, maximizing shareholder value by definition, right? Small business owners, especially locally grown small business owners, usually they care about their family, right? Their impact, the community at large. There's a difference in like what people care about. And also on top of that, when small business owners open up businesses in local communities, that economic dollar stays in the community usually, right? That small business owners will source their produce from like a local vendor, or they'll have, services created from local people, or they'll hire local, right? A lot of time corporations that come in there, they don't care about that. They care about like lowering their costs at all possible points. So they'll get the scalable venture that gives them the tomato at the cheapest price no matter what, even though it's not locally sourced, or, they don't care about any of that stuff. They don't care about hiring, from the local community, so there's a difference in how that takes place. And so, in my opinion also too, like I think you talk about cities wanting to create a unique value proposition for themselves, right, as a whole. Like, sure, you can have a thriving downtown that has a Tiffany's. Okay, cool. But like, personally, I think what makes a place really interesting is like the idea of Main Street businesses, like back in the day, like when you thought about like a Main Street town, old town, like they have local, established, unique places that are nowhere else. Instead of a Tiffany's, like why not a Maria's? Like same shop, same idea, same business, but unique to that city. To me, that's a unique idea that like would draw audiences and people there, right? So I think it's better.
Your vision. And are you happy with what's resulted? And why don't you talk about what you have now? Who are your businesses? What kind of people are running it? And what they're offering?
Yeah. So that's essentially the vision that we've always had, was how do you create a local thriving economy and help shepherd like other people to feel inspired to try to open up alongside you. Since we've opened, we've had a couple businesses in the downtown open up and tell us directly like, oh, you inspired us to open up here too. Local people, we want to help them. We want to, promote them as much as possible. So that stuff is really helping me feel the fuel to keep on going, to see it, like actually see young people like open up furniture stores, open up clothing boutiques, open up like creative.
And this
spots.
Expands beyond the,
yeah,
just the lot lines of Market Boulevard,
yeah,
but the city as a whole.
Yeah. So outside of that little, square footage that we take place, you're talking about a block and a half, and all these little businesses are opening up, which is amazing. So it's making me really feel excited, and to know that we have created this like ripple effect alongside other businesses too. Like it's not just us, but like this combination of density of people that are inspiring downtown. And the concepts in Boulevard Market are phenomenal, right? Like like I said, we have great food concepts like Cafe Santo, like Vichos, like all of these places that are really doing phenomenal work. And they're all artisan. So they take food that's familiar, right? That people understands. They know what Salvadorian food is. They know what coffee is. They know what, ceviche and mariscos but they're driven by a chef or creative culinary. So that it elevates them to another degree, which is phenomenal because it feels like you would only get this type of quality somewhere else and not in the community you're from. So that's the goal, is to leverage artisanship, design, aesthetics, creativity, package it together in a product that our community can, feel connected to.
Russell is the foodie here.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm really interested in all those foods, and I want to go there. But when we first spoke on the phone, you were talking about how you were considering the aesthetics of the place and wanting it to convey the culture without being, I forget how you described it, how maybe outsiders view culture.
Yeah, drenched in stereotypes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you come to the design and where you are today?
Yeah, I mean, well, look, let's be honest, right? Like, it's tricky because you think about, okay, well, like, how do you identify it as a Latino business? Well, it's in a Latino community, right? It's owned by Latinos, right? And I think that's enough for me to tell you that's a Latino. It's a Latino aesthetic. Like, I'm telling you, So, like, it doesn't have to have like, I always make fun, but it doesn't have to have a concha on the wall or a picture of Frida Kahlo or like some overly used trope that, like, or stereotype that people identify as Latino, as being Latino. Like, no one's wearing sombreros or, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't have to be that. So we decide, okay, let's design something that's elegant, that's sophisticated, that, like, people can walk in there and be like, oh wow, this is dope. Like, this is a vibe. Like, this reminds me of XYZ on the West Side or downtown or whatever. That's what we want. Like I said, it all boils down to, we want nice things in our community, things that we can be proud of. So if we can be proud of this type of aesthetic where it's dope, it's clean, it's like cute, right? Well, then perfect. Like, we can extend that so, like, for instance, the mural that we have a mural there. It's designed by Abel Macias, an amazing artist. He's Latino, LGBT community, right? He's from Los Angeles, and his paintings are inspired from, like, Oaxacan, like, designs. So that is very clearly like a Latino mural. But if you look at it, the aesthetic is beautiful. It doesn't scream like, oh, it's Mexican. You know what I mean? Like, it's just authentically elegant, and it's very authentic to our community. But you go throughout every touch point, right? So the food, everything is usually centered around the Latino community or touches on it. The music, our playlists, right? Like, our playlists are intentionally designed to throw back to how we grew up, right? Like, hip hop, R&B, like, 80s, 90s, like, all the music that we love, we intentionally design the music that way too, to that experience that you're feeling. Even the programming, like the musicians that we bring in, the artists that we bring in for programming, like, all that stuff is intentionally designed. We bring in like Neighborhood Orchestra. It's a Latino hip hop jazz band, right? Our DJs, predominantly all Latinos, right? So it's an intentional design. So people feel it without it having to be blatantly in your face. Do you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, Barney, we ask each guest to bring an item of significance with them. What did you bring with you today?
Yeah, so I brought this amazing horseshoe. We have two of them, actually. So this horseshoe was found during the excavation process when we were building out Boulevard Market. Like I said, the Boulevard Market itself is 100 years old, right? Like, this is the building, it's like 107. So, during the excavation process, we dug holes and trenches and had to put new pipes and new plumbing and new electrical lines under the ground. And, we found these two horseshoes, and they were so awesome. It's so, like, funny, right? And then our construction guy put this on a plug, and it's like, lucky horseshoe, right? Found it on February 2020, February 20th, 2020. I mean, how lucky is that, right? Like,
2/20/20.
2/20/2020.
2/20/2020.
Yeah. So it's hilarious. And so we thought, oh man, that's super lucky. But it's indicative kind of like how I feel. Like, I feel like it's a serendipitous luck that we, right time, right place, right project, like, everything has been perfectly aligned. And it feels like all the, I'm a spiritual person. I feel like the universe really aligned itself and got everything out of our way to make sure that this happened. Because I think that it knew that the community needed this. And so this is, to me, very important. Like, indicative of like our journey. So
wow, that
awesome.
is fascinating.
Yeah.
And you're just a year old, aren't you?
I'm 39, but
Yeah.
thank you.
Oh wow, but you look 1 year old. I mean,
yeah, we just celebrated 1 year anniversary, August 21st. So exciting, it went by like quick. It went by really quick, and so it was an amazing journey. And I know we have big things to come. We have a big event at the end of September, with a big company called Lululemon, that we're doing a health and wellness event, doing a big block party. We're going to do more partnerships with organizations and with companies. We're trying to bring more attention to Montebello. Right now, it hasn't been on the map, so we're trying to put it on the map.
so talk about that area, 6th and Whittier.
Yeah.
You described that as downtown.
Yeah. So with the city has earmarked that area as the downtown corridor, like I think it goes from like Montebello, a little bit past Montebello, all the way down to the bridge. But the crux, the main core of downtown, I think, is between like, I would say 4th and Montebello Boulevard, which is like a stretch of like maybe 4 blocks, I would say. But yeah, our business is right at the heart of it. So you have still a lot of really cool businesses that are emerging, popping up and opening there. You have Angry Horse Brewing, which is catty corner to us, and so they've been doing great work there. And so we both kind of like catty corner that heart, the middle of downtown. So now the goal is like activating the other places, right? And I would love to continue investing in Montebello, and so we'll see how that develops. I'd love to continue partnering with the city, maybe buying some additional city-owned properties and see how we can further develop with them in partnership, because I think they know that what we can do is create value-added projects with the downtown. So
Has it been successful to the extent that you had expected?
Yeah, it has been. It has been amazing. People forget like a food hall we have to generate about 25 to 30,000 transactions a month, which is significant. So we have to make sure that we're always marketing, always pushing, getting new people to come, people discover. There's people in the city of Montebello who have never heard of it. And so like getting the word out is extremely important. So we have to continue to keep pushing so that everybody knows about it.
How many eateries do you have?
We have 6 food concepts, and then we have the coffee, the Oaxacan coffee, Cafe Santo, and then we have the bar, Alchemy Craft. So 6 food and then 2 drinks, I would say, yeah. But Cafe Santo does serve food like in the breakfast and for brunch on the weekend with phenomenal brunch, like chilaquiles and French toast and avocado toast, great stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I want to get into what this first year has been like and looking ahead to the future, but let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
At Wormuth Law, they believe that just because you speak a foreign language, come from a different culture, or simply don't know how to navigate the legal system, that should not prevent you from compensation from injury or receiving benefits. Their multicultural staff have been helping SGVers like you for over 38 years. Visit law888.com or call them at 626-784-7017 and tell them you heard about them on this podcast.
All right, we're back with Barney Santos of Boulevard Market. Before the break, we were talking about your first year being in business and a little bit about the businesses that are there. But, share with the listeners what your first year has been like, maybe some of the best times and some of the worst times.
So the first year was a lot of learning and growing, right? So there's building, which I love. I love building. And then there's operating, right? Managing. 2 different things altogether, right? For anybody who's starting companies out there. Require 2 different skill sets. And so, and then as we're launching our first year, you got to be mindful, like I'm opening and operating Boulevard Market, which is one company. Opening and operating Alchemy Craft, which is another company, right? And then opening and operating our incubator, which is another company. It's a restaurant with two companies inside of it that we're managing and overseeing, right? And then overall, Gentefy as a company, we're like, right? So there's a lot of
You're just juggling a lot of things.
With a lot of moving parts. So, our first year was mostly getting punched in the face daily and trying to get used to it. And then ultimately creating policies, implementing people, right? Hiring a property manager that we trust, getting them fully onboarded, getting our believe it or not, the biggest hurdle was like a janitor, getting a consistent janitor. Because you got to imagine, we opened right at the tail end of when things just barely started opening up again. right? But there was still restrictions. Like you couldn't eat inside. So, and at that time, the government was still giving away unemployment benefits, like the stimulus package and also like California's, pay. So there's a lot of people who were just like, listen, I'd rather not make $15, $16 an hour. Like I'd rather just get this check that I'm getting every month from the state, which I totally understand. So it was super challenging finding workers, right? And then when we find workers, a lot of times they stay for like 2 weeks and they leave because it's like, I'd rather just not do this. It's hard work. So there was a whole lot of stabilizing. The first 6 months was all stabilizing, right? And then we opened like in August, which was fantastic, right? August, September, business was decent, really good. But then you started getting into the slower months, right? And then so that was kind of a learning experience, right? How do you draw and then we didn't have an indoor because it was still under construction. So like it was the courtyard and that was it. So when it was raining, like you couldn't go inside. So there was a whole lot of stuff like that, right? And then the bar too was like, well, we had to learn systems, hire new staff, get everybody trained, add new equipment. So we were constantly tinkering and fixing stuff. We had a general contractor that, honestly I was really unhappy with. And so we had to fix all of the work that the general contractor did. So we had to bring in more plumbers, more people, more all this stuff. So it was a constant like that. So that was the tricky part. And then what we figured out was like, okay, well, how do we market? Like, how do you market for a food hall, right? And then so that was constantly, so we hired an agency, work with that agency to develop strategy, create programming, events. We launched that like in February. So it was like constantly iterating, adding more tables, adding more chairs, changing the lighting, right? Because it's like anything else. Like when you build a product, like when they say when you build product, you just launch it, throw it out there and then iterate, tinker with it until it gets perfect, right? It's the same thing with real estate, I think, in this aspect of it. Like we said, okay, let's open and then the customers will tell us what they want. They'll give us feedback and we'll add and subtract based on what they say. Sure enough, that's exactly what we did. Lighting, we turned off the lights because it was too bright, right? There were not enough plants, added more plants, right? More we didn't have enough music, so we added more speakers outside, right? So like there was a whole bunch of stuff that we just had to tinker with and add. So, in the beginning there was a lot of flies, and so like we had to get special trash cans that had lids, right? There's all things that you don't think about, so it's like the little things you have to kind of add.
Did the pandemic lead you to make changes that you didn't expect to, but they became permanent changes?
That's a good question. I don't think the pandemic gave us anything that we like. I don't know. I can't think of anything right now because maybe we've normalized it already. But everything is the way we intended now. I mean, I don't think there's any one thing that we implemented because of the pandemic that we're continuing to like say, okay, this is what we're always doing. People, I feel, are no longer like they care about the whole 6 feet apart thing. That was the big thing in the beginning was like people didn't want to sit next to each other.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, oh, big time. We bought all these communal tables, right? Thinking that the community is going to sit next to each other, and that wasn't the case.
But now it's not.
Now it's
an
not
issue.
a problem. People were like, "Oh, do you mind if I sit here next to you?" It's all good now. But in the beginning, it was just like, yeah, and I would just look at this ocean of seats, and I'm like, damn, like no one. It's like 2 people in this group that's made for 6. You're like, oh man, that's like killing. Yeah. That's opportunity for sitting down. So that was a whole challenge too. So, but outside of that, I mean, there really isn't anything that we've now implemented for sure.
Is that pretty much a thing of the past then?
For us, I feel like it is. It doesn't feel like we have any residual impact anymore. I feel like it just feels like a normal life now. Yeah.
Well, that's good.
100%.
Back to
100%.
that stage.
Yeah, definitely.
So the seating outdoor is communal, or it's all communal seating?
Not anymore. I mean, it was at one point, but because of what I was mentioning, like how COVID impacted, we saw that there was a need for 2 people with smaller tables and 2 seats. So we bought like a bunch of tables and seats like that for outside. And so now we added probably like 30 seats like that outside, maybe more. And there's probably a couple more wiggle room for a couple more. It's pretty tight in the courtyard now, but
yeah. what can you seat? So you have to turn 25 to 30,000 transactions per month. So that's 1,000 a day.
Roughly. I mean, yeah. So we can seat about 150, about 120 outside and about 30 inside. And we could probably squeeze maybe like another 20 or 30 more in there. Like I'll probably end up doing that, probably more tables and chairs. But it feels like on a busy day, it feels really like tight. But people tell us that they love that because it gives them this sense of like density and community. Like it feels like a block party almost, you know? And so I think it lends itself to the space itself, the community culture.
Is the culture where they're okay to sit communally? Like if you've ever been to like a Vietnamese restaurant or a Chinese restaurant, that's the only place I ever experienced this where like there'll be a round table and like you sit here and you're sitting right next to like another family or another group and you're not even with them, but it's just accepted in the culture, right?
Yeah.
Do they feel okay, aside from the COVID thing, but culturally, are they okay to share a space like that?
Yeah, I feel like in the beginning it wasn't because of COVID, but now I'm starting to see it more and more. Like people are okay. I would say, I don't know if it's a cultural thing, but I do feel like I see it happening more. Although I do also still see people like, okay, no, like we have like there's tables where there's 2 tables next to each other. They'll still split it. Like they'll give us 6 inches. Maybe that's the number that they're comfortable with. Like give me 6 inches, who knows? But ultimately that's kind of like the little space buffer that people want between each other.
What are the busiest days of the week for you guys?
Oh, the weekends for sure. I mean, our place lends itself to, it's a Friday night, Saturday all day, and then like brunch gets really packed also on Saturday and Sunday. I like to say that we have the best brunch on the east side. A lot of people tell us that because everybody has something related to brunch, 1 or 2 or 3 items even. So you can imagine like you have 8 different companies that have brunch related items, and we always have a DJ on Sunday for brunch. So it's outdoor, it's patio, it's fresh, it's like good music. It's a great patio environment. The bar has mimosas, we have margaritas, you know, so it's like, it's a fun brunch. So I like to say we call it, you know, like I said, we have the best brunch on the east side, but it's fun. So we get really packed on the weekends for sure. And lately, for some reason, I think we've been getting kind of busy on like Tuesday nights for some strange reason. I can't even explain why, but Tuesday nights it's been getting a little bit more busier than not.
Wow, that's quite a journey from academics to the best brunch on the east side.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
In 5 years.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's been a fun journey. I will say that. I mean, it's got its ups, its downs. There's been times where I wanted to throw in the towel because it's hard, you know, like we talked about like what was my experience. It was none. I had no developer experience. So it was a lot of learning through the process, raising capital, getting people to build our trust with us. And so there was a lot of times where we almost threw in the towel because finding capital for this project was so difficult. Nobody wanted to invest in a first-time developer who wanted to invest in an untested Latino community. It sounds like, oh, it's easy now, but back then there was Montebello was not the place to invest in. Investors didn't want to invest in it. Banks didn't want to touch it. We got turned down by so many people. But now it makes sense, and everybody's wanting to mess with us now because we're now proven. But in the beginning, we were so untested. Like it was unproven market, unproven idea. Mm-hmm. So it was difficult. So I'm just glad now we have something we can tangibly touch and social proof and say, look, see if you trust us with your money, we can actually invest in and make something awesome. So now cities are approaching us. Banks are approaching us.
You're a proven entity.
Yeah, it's crazy, but you know. Yeah. It takes a crazy jump before some people start believing you.
Right.
What is the demographics of the people that are coming now? Like, where do you see they're from? Are they families? Are they young people, older people in the community?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, you know, initially our initial assessment was, and it's still to this day, like our target demographic that we were going after with Boulevard Market was like a 30 to 35-year-old Latina who was college educated. That was kind of like that's who we were going after. So the whole place is designed for her. It still is. Like all our decisions are like, we always say like, you know, would she like this? But what we've noticed is like, and this was our original assumption was like, if you design for this Latina, she's going to bring her sister, she's going to bring her mom, she's going to bring her grandmother. And then the guys are all going to follow her, right? The guys always want to be around, the girls. So they'll come regardless, right? And that's what we've seen. So now, you know, what we see a lot of young families, a lot of 25 to 40-year-old young families, like with little kids. We even seen some older people like in sort of like the baby boomer generation are there. People it's a good time, good environment. I would say it's a family environment. It's not like a place where people go and get trashed on a Friday night. We never really have that kind of crowd. People don't get into fights at our place. Like we don't really attract that, thankfully. It's something about the design and the layout and the space and the drinks and everything. Like it just lends itself to like a really calm, cool, relaxed environment. And I appreciate that. I'd rather have that crowd than the other crowd.
Yeah. Sure. Well, you know, anytime we talk about food on the show, Scott and I both get really
we light up.
Yeah, food is one of our passions, and what are some place that you aside from Boulevard Market, because of course you're those are your interests, but a food place that you like in the San Gabriel Valley?
There's a couple places, honestly. Like San Gabriel Valley has really good food. One place is that my wife and I are always like, let's go there. Is Tokyo Fried Chicken, right? Like, love that place. Unique,
very unique.
There's no other place around that's like it. Very specific. Like I said, it's a small business owner. Like, I think it's great. It's delicious chicken. I mean, it's good.
So I have not been there, but Russell, you have been there.
I have. It's in Monterey Park. The name alone just sort of drew me in. I needed to find out what it was about.
Yeah, what is it about?
So it's a Japanese inspired Tokyo Fried Chicken that's inspired from American KFC. It's a weird, it's a weird concept, but it makes total sense. Because I didn't know this, but in Japan, obviously I know this part. They're obsessed with the not all Japanese, but there's a big subculture of Americana, people who love Americana, and KFC is very Americana type of culture. Right? It's KFC, and so the bucket of chicken and the kernel, and so believe it or not, what I've learned is that fried chicken is a big thing in Japan, and so apparently this company Tokyo Fried Chicken essentially is a concept of that. So it's Japanese Tokyo Fried Chicken, but branded, labeled, identified as an Americana type of theme. So even they sell you fried chicken in a bucket that looks like the old KFC.
Is that
bucket,
right? Yeah. So they market it as Kentucky Fried Chicken, but it's
adjacent.
Does it taste different?
No, it's totally amazing. Yeah, it tastes way better than KFC for sure. Oh, yeah. And then everything is kind of infused with some sort of Japanese ingredients or flavors, like their barbecue baked beans, their mac and cheese. They have sauces that are Japanese flavored.
This place is located on Atlantic, south of Garvey, on the east side. I don't know if you know where that old Sanrio store has been. And there's a foot massage place right next door.
It's next to the Marie Callender's and the Daikokuria.
Yeah. Oh, so you should check it out, Scott.
It's great. They don't
because if I go over there
anymore, though,
I'd end up at Marie Callender's.
Yeah, right. Ever since COVID started, they started only doing delivery only. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I know the little place you're talking about. Yeah, right. It's just right there at the corner. Yeah. It's kind of hard to get into, isn't it?
The parking lot is a little small, I think. For
okay, I'm going to Marie Callender's.
It's great, though. Honestly, I highly recommend it.
Wow, that's a great project you did.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
appreciate that. Yeah,
it takes some determination.
It took a lot
and vision.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we try
to stick to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like anything else, right? You just kind of make the commitment and you ride it through.
Yeah,
and I think that's.
And being in a 100-plus-year-old building, I mean, that's a nice sort of reuse of history.
Yeah, we think so. I mean, I think that's the model lent itself to that. Even the sign, we just redid the sign, the marquee sign. We had a marquee sign on the building that was I don't know, 50 years old maybe, by Right Loom. Even that, what we did was we restored it, but not to the original. So we left the patina on it because I thought the patina kind of gave it some good it gives a character and context of the age.
Yeah.
And then the frontage of the sign, it said Right Loom, and then it said carpet, marquee letters going down, carpet.
So
what we did was we took the same font of the Right Loom and then we made it say Boulevard.
Oh.
And then the carpet, I just swapped 2 letters and it says Market. Right, and so now it says Boulevard Market, and then instead of lighting up all of the letters, because our logo is BLVD MRKT, we only lit up the MRKT. So at night, it's, I mean, it was serendipitously perfect.
Yeah,
the fact that it was carpet that transitions into mark, it was just a perfect. It was meant to be.
Right in.
Meant to be. Yeah. So it was kind of nice, but we just lit that up last 2 weeks ago on our anniversary. We lit it up for the first time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, hasn't been lit up in I don't know, 40 years, maybe 30 years.
Oh, wow. Yeah, there must be people that remember the carpet store
for sure. Yeah, I mean, it's got massive history, that place.
Yeah.
So that's why we wanted to keep a little bit of the historical reference to it to throw back for people who understood and knew it. Most people don't remember it, but when we tell them the context of the sign, they get it. Oh, I see. Some people think that our sign is is the neon is broken because not all the letters are lit.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to get into some more places that you recommend in the San Gabriel Valley right now.
Okay, Barney, we want to talk about your SGV3, your favorite places, memories, or events, or just things to do in the San Gabriel Valley.
Yeah, I mean, San Gabriel is a great place. I think we talked about one of them, which is Tokyo Fried Chicken, right?
Yeah.
I love that place. But I also really love like Cook's Tortas. Cook's Tortas is really delicious. I don't know if you've heard of that
Where
place.
is that?
I've been there too. That's in Monterey Park,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it's also Monterey Park. Really amazing tortas.
Oh.
Chef-driven artisanal tortas. It's right next to the Boston Market.
It has all the
down.
sandwiches on the wall, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I've been there too.
It's great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I used to go there all the time.
Yeah, my favorite
Right.
is the ranchito. It's like a carne asada type of torta. It's
Oh,
amazing.
yeah, right.
And they have an al pastor one too. It's
Well, I
really good.
remember when they opened, which
Yeah.
I'm going to guess was maybe 15 years ago.
No, it's way sooner than that. Like, yeah, no, it was definitely not. It was maybe like, I can't say, but it was definitely less than 10 years ago for sure. Or maybe you're right. I don't know.
Because my office was right there until 2008.
Maybe you're right.
And they opened towards the end of my time there.
Time goes by so fast, though. Maybe you're right. I don't know. I could be.
Because I would go there I was there when they opened, and
Oh, okay.
and I went there.
Damn, that went by fast, dude. 15 years. That's
Oh
crazy.
yeah, right.
I haven't been there in a long time. Is it still like pretty popular?
Yeah, I mean, I love it. It's good, yeah, and it doesn't change. I mean, the food is just consistently
Oh,
good.
yeah.
And they make their own bread there, which is amazing. You know, like it's just quality.
And they have the
food.
good little side dishes
Yeah.
that come with, maybe a potato salad. I don't know
that's
what
right.
it is.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I remember specifically when I first tried their al pastor, it was like, dude, there's like chunks of pineapple in it. I was like, delicious.
Oh yeah.
So the Tokyo Fried
that
Chicken,
is a good place.
yeah,
Yes.
totally good. Cooks is good.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I'll keep it in Monterey Park since we're there now, like talking about it. But I guess the hat is really amazing too. I love the hat. Can't go wrong with the hat either.
Wow, there's a
Iconic.
classic.
We just had
iconic.
some pastrami fries the other day. Actually, it was
Oh yeah.
phenomenal there. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And they're all over. I mean,
Yeah.
Monterey Park. Yeah, has it right there in this almost the same little mall there.
I guess that one in closer to Montebello is like Riggin and Garfield,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, I would
No, Atlantic.
Atlantic. It's Atlantic. Yeah,
It's Atlantic.
yeah.
I mean, there is also one at Riggin. No, is it? No, it is. It is.
It's Atlantic. It's close to East
Oh no, you're
Los
right. You're right.
Angeles
Yes,
College
yes,
there.
yes.
Yeah, it's all down
Yeah.
that street. So it's the hat, and then down the street is actually Cook's Torta right there too.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
And then you keep driving straight down, and you go into Tokyo Fried Chicken.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you can hit the 3 down in one line.
Yeah. Anne-Marie calendars, I might say.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, I don't know if this would be like considered San Gabriel. I think so, but like there's a Salvadorian pupusa place called Los Molcajetes. It's right off of that same street, Atlantic, crossing Beverly, right where like the MTA, the train stops, that last stop at the MTA station. It's right there. It's a Salvadorian place called Los Molcajetes. It's pupusa, Salvadorian pupusas. It's so good.
Sorry about the noise, everyone. We're trying to battle the leaf blower outside, but molcajete is that the like stone?
Yeah, it's a stone like sort of like grinder made from volcanic rock, and so a very traditional tool made to like grind spices and different things, corn, maize, or anything. But it's not Mexican. This location is Salvadorian, but it's they make pupusas like authentic pupusa. It's like one of my top 3 pupusa places in all of, and I'm Salvadorian, so top 3 pupusa places in all of LA. The number 1 is for sure Vichos, which you can find currently at Boulevard Market.
What is a pupusa for those who don't know?
Yeah, so it's essentially the closest thing I can compare it to would probably be like a arepa, a Colombian arepa, or like a gordita from Mexico. So it's like maize stuffed with like cheese or pork or something like that, but it's enclosed, right? So it's like an enclosed meal. So people eat it with fermented cabbage. It's like a called cortido, fermented cabbage and carrots, and then with a tomato sauce, which is the salsa roja. But it's a delicacy. It's like the dish that, like the way that Mexicans are associated and tied to like tacos, for instance, are very indicative to the culture. Salvadorians are very tied to the pupusa. Like that's kind of like the dish for Salvadorians that are very culturally relevant. It's super iconic and super delicious. Like it's as a dish. I highly recommend it if you haven't tried it. It's really, really good.
And what's the name of the place that sells it at Boulevard Market again?
It's called Vichos, so VCHO, Vichos. But they have food trucks. So they have 2 food trucks that are all over Los Angeles, and then their first storefront is in Montebello. But their pupusas are, they're to die for. And then every kind of like holiday season before Thanksgiving, they come up with the Salvadorian tamal, which is way different from like a Mexican tamal. It's a little bit more moist and wet. It is to die for, honestly. Like I wait for it all year round for it. It's so good.
If you can't see, the listening audience can't see your facial expressions, but
my eyes are rolling back.
Yeah, you're really
salivating.
It's so good, honestly. Like all the places that we just named right now are phenomenal. And if you think about like what they all do really well is they take like traditional cuisine and they elevate it, right? So they give you a different variation. The creativity behind it is great. It's not just a torta, it's an elevated torta. It's not just fried chicken, it's an elevated fried chicken, right? It's not just pastrami, it's like elevated. In my opinion, it's elevated pastrami. And so even the pupusa for the Los Molcajetes, it's elevated. And Vichos, like I said, that it's all elevated. So it's phenomenal food. Yeah, I'm a big fan of people who take pride in artisanship and food and quality.
Awesome. Well, Barney, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing about the thought of and the growth and the struggles of Boulevard Market. How can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so they can follow me on Instagram. It's just my name, BarneySantos. So it's Barney Santos. Or they can follow Boulevard Market, BLVD MRKT. And go on our website, our Instagram, on Twitter, on Snapchat, on TikTok. I mean, we're on all platforms, actually. So, yeah, just follow us anywhere.
And again, the location of the market?
So it's on 520 West Whittier Boulevard in Montebello. So right in the heart of downtown Montebello off of Whittier and 6th Street.
And are you there? Can they see you there?
Yeah, every once in a while I'll pop in there. You know, I'm trying not to be there every day because, you know, I have administrative things I have to take care of. But you could usually find me there sometimes on the weekend, or every once in a while during the day. I'll pop in there for like a half an hour just to kind of check in on things. But for the most part, on the weekends, you most likely are the days you'll find me there. Awesome.
I think Carlos, our previous guest, had posted something that Mexican water polo person was going to be there.
Yeah. So Carlos is partnering with Ricky Rivera, who owns Norwalk Brew House, which is an up-and-coming brewery that's going to be opening up soon. And they're launching a beer called Agua de Oro. So it's dedicated to Brenda Villa, which is the most decorated Olympian water polo swimmer. And she's Latina, she's from the community. And so on the 17th, I think, of September, which is officially Hispanic Heritage Month or Latino Heritage Month, we're going to be launching their beer at Boulevard Market. It's going to be a pretty amazing event. She's going to be there with her medals, taking photos, launching the beer. So it'll be fun. We'll have a great DJ. It'll be a good night out.
Wow, that sounds exciting.
Yeah, celebrating Latino excellence. So it'll be an amazing night.
Awesome. Well, Barney, thank you again for coming on the show. I'm looking forward to checking out Boulevard Market, and I hope our listeners will go check it out too. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. It's an honor.
Well, there's a show for you guys. Thank you for spending this time with us. Like always, you can find us at sgvmasterkey.com. Email us with your questions, info@sgvmasterkey.com. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you again really soon next week.
You've been listening to the SGV Master Key Podcast. Our passion is the small businesses and the people that make up the San Gabriel Valley, and it's our honor to have them on the show. We hope you've enjoyed it. Make sure to like, rate, and review. The show is produced by Russell Mano, edited by Victoria Allers of Kind Monster Productions. Thanks for listening, and see you next time on the SGV Master Key Podcast.
Master, no, kind of master.